Tonight, politics and playoffs collide. Prime Minister Mark Carney unveils his first cabinet following last month's federal election and says no budget this year. Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre fires back. And we also have Eddie in with his NHL playoffs.
Yeah.
From Montreal.
I got that wrong. And we'll be wrapping up tonight's episode with another chapter of the NHL Playoff Pulse. From Montreal and my usual 4 floors up from Mr. Gary McDonald, this is Night Talk, episode 33. I'm Eddie Takalik.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. And a quick reminder, we want you involved, so make sure to post a comment. We will feature and respond to as many as possible tonight. Now, let's get into it. And Eddie, what a great start to the show. A few laughs. Yeah. And it's, the start of the first long weekend of the summer season. And we have Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiling his cabinet on Tuesday, one he says reflects the focus of his new government to move Canada forward.
This cabinet is smaller and more focused than those of previous governments. It will operate with a commitment to true cabinet government, with everyone expected and empowered to show leadership, to bring new ideas, to have a clear focus, and to take decisive actions to accomplish their work. In a return to more traditional cabinet government, our cabinet will be supported by 10 secretaries of state who will lead on key priorities within their ministers' portfolios. We will govern as a cabinet constructively and collaboratively, working with caucus and across parties in Parliament to deliver the change that Canadians want and desire. Our new government will be a strong and reliable partner to the provinces, the territories, and to Indigenous peoples. We will reinforce bridges across labour, business, and civil society. And together, we will advance the nation-building investments that will support the core mission of this government, which is to create the strongest economy in the G7, an economy that works for everyone. We need to balance experience and new perspectives. Canadians voted for big change, not small change. They voted for big change. We're blessed with the trust of many Canadians. We have a big intake of new deputies, lots of different experiences that they're bringing, and so bringing a balance, which is what we have of experience, perhaps in some cases in new roles, but experience as cabinet ministers, and new voices, new perspectives, half and half. For me, it's perfect.
Now, there are 28 ministers plus Carney, along with 10 secretaries of state to support specific policy areas. The cabinet maintains near gender parity with 13 men and 11 women, excluding Carney. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was quick to point out the number of ministers who served in roles with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
The Conservatives will take our role of holding the government accountable seriously. That doesn't mean we reflexively oppose everything the government does. When it comes, for example, to foreign affairs, if the government does a good job at defending our national interests in negotiations with the U.S., then we will support those efforts. When they're right, we'll stand with them. When they're wrong, we will oppose them. In his first press conference, Mr. Carney talked a good game about reversing Liberal policies in these areas, but now we have to find out if he was serious. And so far, it's not a promising start. The first disappointment is, unfortunately, his cabinet. He appointed Trudeau's old team and Trudeau's old advisors. Stephen Guilbeault, whose radical green agenda would shut down all future developments in our resource industry, is still the minister responsible for Quebec. Sean Fraser was the immigration minister who caused the immigration crisis, the housing minister who gave us the housing crisis, and now he's the minister responsible for addressing the Liberal crime crisis. It seems like he is the master at failing upward. Chrystia Freeland, who as finance minister hiked capital gains tax and carbon taxes and massively grew our debt to the point where we now spend $1 billion a week on interest, stays in the cabinet. Then there's Gary Anadasangari, the new Minister of Public Safety, who said the actual crimes, the actual issues around bail are quite sound, and they are embedded in, codified in law right now, as in to say that there's nothing wrong with the system. Well, in fact, there's everything wrong, as we see from the growing crime wave on our streets. Then there's François-Philippe Champagne, Trudeau's Minister of Everything, who never really managed to do anything. And he did it very loudly. But nice guy. I'll give him credit. He's a nice guy. But he was the Minister of Industry during which we had the worst economic growth of any country in the G7. And now he's in charge of the budget. Then there's Joly, LeBlanc, Haidu, Anand. Anand was the president of the Treasury Board, during which time the bureaucracy and the consultant bills blew out of control. In all, 14 Trudeau ministers are now in Carney's cabinet. It's more of the same when Canada needs real change.
And we have a question tonight for you. What is your take on Carney's cabinet picks? Bold new direction or more of the same? We want your comments. Post them on Facebook or YouTube. They'll come in to us. And we do have some comments coming in already, Eddie. And let's just bring a couple of those up right now. And the first one is from Deborah. Do you think Carney's new government is top-heavy with elites? Well, I'll leave that up to everyone to make their own decision. I think it's balanced. Yes, you have lawyers and you have others, business people, and so on. And those are the people who are offering for office. So that's who he has to pick from. But I can understand where there are some people who would, feel that, they're kind of top heavy in the upper crust, if you will. Your thoughts on that one, Eddie?
Well, you know what? I think typically in any Canadian government, you're going to get a balance. I mean, you are going to have your elites and privileged. I don't think it's a majority. It's definitely a minority in terms of that kind of person that's running our country. Both in prime minister and front bench and back bench. Then you get the middle of the grade, and then you get some people that are right from the grassroots that actually work their way up through politics, and quite honestly earning their spot in any sort of an opposition or cabinet post. And in terms of what I've seen in Carney's cabinet, I think we have a real good mix. And you know what, Gary? Let's call a spade a spade as well. If you look at the groups that are going to be forming the official opposition, it's not a bad balance, to tell you the truth. There's a balance of the elites, then there's a balance of the middle and the people at the bottom that made their way up. A lot of highly educated people. You can't hold that against them in terms of qualifying them as an elite or not. And you have a lot of individuals that have had corporate experience, and a lot of individuals that actually have political background and have been in it for quite a while. So I think that Deborah's right. There's a tendency to look at our governments as elites, and I think a lot of that has to do with us being, how should I put it, blindwashed on the media and what we're seeing in the United States, where the entire government is run by elitists. So I don't think that's the case in Canada. I think we're far from it. That's more of an American thing. And I'm seeing a pretty nice balance in Carney's cabinet, but also across the floor in the opposition side. I think minority government right now, with Liberal, is going to create some very colorful discussions on the floor as Parliament resumes. So. I think she's right to bring that out, Deborah. But by the same token, I think we have a nice balance, in my opinion.
And Monel, talking about Poilievre, he lost his bloody riding. I wish he would just slither away. And then, as far as the cabinet is concerned, time will tell what they make happen. So let's have a quick look at the cabinet. As far as some of the returning key appointments are concerned, of course, François-Philippe Champagne as Minister of Finance, and he was served for the 10 days or so of Carney's first government after winning the leadership as Minister of Finance. Anita Anand, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Dominique LeBlanc, Minister responsible for Canada-US trade, intergovernmental affairs, and One Canadian economy. And you know, that's a term that Carney has been using almost from day one of the campaign. Instead of 13 economies in the country, one Canadian economy. And Dominique LeBlanc has been Intergovernmental Affairs Minister. He's been Minister of Everything and Minister of Cleanup when it came to cleaning up behind Trudeau's messes. So if anybody can make it work, it's LeBlanc. Of course, he has I don't know if I'd call it a good working relationship, but he has a working relationship with Trump's Treasury Secretary, who is the more he opens his mouth, the more of a goof he really shows himself as being. Then we have Chrystia Freeland as Minister of Transport and Internal Trade, and that, of course, is working on the bringing down the interprovincial trade barriers. Melanie Joly, Minister of Industry, with a focus also on the Quebec region. And, you know, you and I talked about it briefly the other night as far as Jolie is concerned. She did, I thought, over the last 5 or 6 years that she's been in foreign affairs, I thought, especially in the last couple of years, she was really coming into her own and really hitting her stride. And I thought she represented our country in a very, very professional, top-notch manner.
You're looking at mainstream media in the United States. I mean, she was not afraid to join any network and have dialogue and debate on what we as Canadians feel, what she's going to be doing to defend our national integrity, and without actually coming out and saying it, some very choice words about the American administration. So absolutely, Gary, I just love the way she handled herself in front of American media, how she handled herself in front of Canadians, which is most important. And she's got a wealth of experience that she can draw from to take this particular mandate forward and making it a success. She's been a success so far in my eyes, I think in your eyes as well, Gary, and I think she'll do quite well over the next 4 years.
Well, I think she will, and I don't know if Carney just felt that she needed a change, or maybe she asked for a change. Maybe she felt she was at a point where she was going to hit the wall, the burnout level. So, he brings her in, and I'm thinking, I was just sitting here thinking, as I was looking at her name and thinking, listening to what you were saying, he appointed, and this is, I'm going to be perfectly honest here, Carney Starr lost a point with me when he brought Stephen Guilbeault back into the cabinet. That guy should be sitting up in the nosebleed section of the back benches in the House of Commons and not anywhere near a ministerial post. No way at all. Not at all. So Carney lost a star, or has a dent in a star from my perspective, for bringing that guy in and putting him in charge of Canadian culture and the French language. And if he does anything there, like he did as Minister of Environment, where he filled, and he filled Trudeau over the last 10 years with all kinds of, huggy, feel good, green ideas. And where did it get us? We made all of Trudeau would run around making all of these pronouncements on the international stage, Guilbeault hanging from his side, or Guilbeault was let loose on his own on a number of occasions. And we never, ever even remotely came close to meeting any of those commitments. And, getting up on stage and frowning on other countries who weren't meeting the commitments or had no, program in place at the time. Who are you to throw stones living in a glass house, you two yahoos? So, like Guilbeault, Yeah.
He didn't do any good. He didn't do any good for us in terms of the relationship of the federal government with Western Canada. I think a lot of his talk. I think a lot of his talk actually further alienated the West, especially Alberta, in terms of what he was speaking about from an environmental perspective and what he was filling up Trudeau's head with in terms of some horrible advice and policy. So, yeah, I wasn't aware that was him. I forgot what his name was, so now that it rings a bell. Yeah, I think that's a loss of a brownie point for Mr. Carney. Now, with any sort of assignment of a new cabinet, you're always prone to losing quite a few brownie points right at the get-go. From what I'm seeing right now, just one brownie point, and we'll just see how things work out. And you know what? It's going to show very quickly. It's not going to be a year.
It already has.
Delay. It's going to show very quickly. Yeah. It has.
It already has. He walked out of the first cabinet meeting yesterday and started yakking about pipelines, and what he was saying went against the overall tone that Carney has been taking from day one, all through the campaign and after winning the election. And there's Guilbeault, who is supposedly now a seasoned politician who was in a cabinet post for a number of years under Trudeau, and he walks out and he opens up and starts singing off a different page in the hymn book. Like, if I had been Carney and I heard about that, he would have been in my office 5 minutes later, and you know what? Put your letter of resignation on the desk.
You know what? I would think that Carney brought him into his office and had a stern conversation with him. I don't know if he'd go outright and ask for his resignation, because what would that look like out to the rest of us Canadians and his critics alike? So, but I wouldn't put it past him that he grabbed him aside and said, "Listen, bozo, what the hell are you doing? We're supposed to be rowing in the same direction, and you've only had your job for what, a day?
Yeah.
A couple of days, and you're already screwing it up." I'm almost certain he would have had that discussion, because somebody of Carney's stature in terms of the corporate world and business world, those are discussions you have immediately. Don't let things fester for days. So fingers crossed that I'm right. I think I am. And next time he crosses that line, Gary, you're absolutely right. Kick in the ass, give me a resignation. Let's move on, right?
But Eddie, Carney knew what this guy was like before putting him into cabinet. And he should never have ended up with a role in cabinet. I would have taken one of the newbie Liberal MPs and found a cabinet spot or a Secretary of State to bolster the numbers that he wanted representing Quebec, and go that route, than bringing that bird back in. And if he had called Guilbeault in and said to him yesterday, "Put your resignation on my desk," this is what you would have heard from my place 4 floors down.
Yeah.
That's how much I think that is just a total, show.
Mm-hmm. I guess hindsight thinking, I can see where you're coming from. Maybe that would have shown a sign of strength that, maybe that, what, you're right, just hindsight thinking to what you said. One of the struggles Carney is going to continue to have, and you saw what Poilievre seems to have brought up consistently in his over his microphone and his sneering, always kind of relating back to the Trudeau era, right?
Yep.
And we've talked about this before. Carney will continue to struggle and will continue to fight that battle in separating himself from the Trudeau era. We saw during the campaign, we saw during the race for the Liberal leadership, that was a constant issue, separating himself from Trudeau. Maybe you're right. Maybe by taking action right away, getting rid of Guilbeault, getting on the microphone and saying, "He's gone. This is a mistake that I made, and we're going to be very quick in admitting our mistakes, fixing them, and moving forward." Maybe that would have won him some brownie points and would push the opposition at bay a little bit. And that would help separate him from the Trudeau era, right?
Exactly. And then you have Gregor Robertson, who former mayor of Vancouver, so he's no newbie to the political scene as Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. And when he came out from the meeting yesterday and hit the wall of scrum, he also, his response about housing prices in the country was kind of offline from what, you know, the official stance of Carney and his platform has been. And again, this is a guy who should have had enough common sense one day on the job. He hasn't even had a chance to look at any of the files or be briefed by the deputy minister or any of the other officials under the deputy minister. Hasn't had that opportunity. And he comes out shooting his mouth off instead of just saying, you know, housing is a priority. I think the Prime Minister communicated that quite clearly throughout the campaign, and I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and get busy and carry through the commitments that we as a party have made to the people of Canada, and walk away.
But no, that's not what happened.
No, exactly. And again, there's a guy who should have, he's not a newbie. Yes, it's his first shot at the national forum, but still, it's very easy to make that transfer. And he's probably had more than his share of media training as to how to take the question and bridge to your message, your key message, main talking point, whatever you want to call it, and then move on. Get out.
Well, you know what? In my opinion, his microphone spot was a 50-50 deal. The 50-50 underwater was when he opened his mouth and commented on the cost of housing, that it doesn't necessarily have to come down. It's not word for word, but that was pretty much the idea. So that was a 50% underwater. And then he kind of got out of the water where it was 50% above the water, basically saying the solution to all this is we are going to build. We're going to build homes. The solution here is building affordable housing, which has been a cornerstone or big corner piece of the Carney campaign for elections. So I look at what he had to say as a 50-50. And you're absolutely right. As a seasoned politician, especially in coming as mayor out of Vancouver, he should have known better. I don't know what happened there, if he had a brain freeze of sorts, but that was not the kind of statement to make. At the first time you're being exposed as part of your new portfolio, coming out and saying that housing costs don't have to come down or whatever the case is. So bad one. And it's not a rookie mistake either. That's the whole. That's the whole thing. It's not a rookie mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And one other name that popped off the list for me, and I'd forgotten he actually had won his seat. And that was Evan Solomon, who is Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation. And I think that Carney is smart in focusing on that and having a minister focus on that aspect. And Evan Solomon, he's, I think...
Wasn't he broadcasting like
that? Yeah, he was in broadcasting journalist. He hosted actually Power and Politics on CBC, and then ended up hosting Power Play on CTV before leaving for New York. And he was hired on by a firm, or anyway, ended up with a firm in New York. And he also launched, I believe it was some kind of a digital newsletter while he was there. Mm-hmm. And then it was either just after the election in the U.S. or just after Christmas, he started popping up on like Power Play on CTV as a pundit. And along he went. And then apparently Carney picked the phone up and called him and asked him if he'd come back to Toronto and run in one of the Toronto ridings. And I just don't recall which riding it was, but he won it. And he's in cabinet. And certainly, if anybody can communicate what they're doing and what they're working on, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence and digital innovation, it'll be Evan Solomon. Will be able to carry that message forward. And I think as a minister, I think he really will represent the country well. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of this whole thing with the artificial intelligence and the innovation side of things as well, because we have some very, very super intelligent people working in those fields in this country, right across the country from coast to coast to coast. And I think it's an untapped resource that we can really turn into a real solid pillar of our new one Canadian economy.
I'd love to see an Avro 2 be created by our Canadian engineers. And I think it's very easily feasible, granted that the money and the funding is made available, that we can do something like that. And you know what? We can start exporting some of our technology. I mean, look at the Avro Aero. I mean, this was far, far, far beyond anything any other country had. It just never. I mean, it got off the table. It got into the air. It was just kibosh for reasons unknown, which we'll never know. We can always look at creating that as a number 2. Look, in terms of aerospace, Canada has always been up there. You look at some of our companies that are related to the aerospace industry. You look at the organization that puts satellites into space. You're looking at the Canadarm. You're looking at the creation of Bombardier. I mean, we are very, very good when it comes to that kind of an innovation. And you know what? It would behoove me to actually see us take a step forward in competing with some of these big organizations like Saab. You're looking at the European Union coming up, or the Europeans coming up with a Eurofighter, or Boeing, or McDonnell Douglas, or whatever the case is. I think we could, be really, really good to see something like that come from our country, because you're right, Gary. We have the experience and the expertise to do it. Just need the money to do it. And what do you think about the appointment of David McGuinty as Minister of Defense?
He came from public safety, I think, wasn't it?
Yes,
originally. Yeah. So I think he was doing a solid job in public safety, and some of what he was involved with as far as public safety is concerned can relate very quickly and very easily to the defense side of things. And he is really a fresh face coming at that particular portfolio, and it's that's one of the important portfolios, because Carney has committed to spending money on our military and on our sovereignty, defending our sovereignty. So it's obvious that he has a lot of faith in McGuinty to produce. And I think that, if you watch him, he's kind of a very quiet individual, just sort of seems to take things in, but when he speaks, he seems to speak from authority and background. So obviously he's doing his job in staying on top of his files. And I think that that's a step forward in as far as moving our military forward as well. And we have to really start stepping it up like yesterday.
And you know what? I mean, interestingly enough, if I'm looking at some of the appointments, or most of the appointment that Prime Minister Carney made, everyone that he's actually appointed in positions, except for maybe one that I see, actually has a background or a combination of backgrounds that will actually pay dividends towards the mandate that they've been given as ministers. I mean, that's essentially what you want to do. Put the right people in place to give you the best opportunity of success right from the get-go. David McGuinty is a classic example, as you brought up. I mean, he was Minister of Public Safety. I dug in a little bit more on his background. I don't know if you knew, Gary, but he was the chair of the National Security and Intelligence Committee, which actually oversaw Canadian intelligence services like CSIS. So, you combine his public safety. You combine his public safety. You combine his experience and expertise in national security. You know what? That is a considerable background to bring into a portfolio as a Minister of Defense. So, that's another genius pick by Prime Minister Carney. I really, really like that one.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten about that actually, Eddie. Yeah. And just as a reminder, as we're getting ready to wrap up this portion, we want to ask you, what is your take on Carney's cabinet picks? Bold new direction or more of the same? Let us know in the comments, and we will bring them up for everyone to see and have a discussion around them. Eddie, so how would you rate it? A bold new direction or more of the same? Or did he strike a balance going down the center?
I think in terms of experience and expertise around the entire table when his cabinet and his ministers sit down, I think I'll give him a 7 to 8 out of 10 in terms of the wealth of experience he has around this table. And the beauty of this, if for whatever reason, cabinet shuffles are not an uncommon thing. If he has to move people around within his cabinet to take on different portfolios, he can certainly do that with what he has. So, he's got his prime team, and he's also got backup in mind as well, because, especially in the portfolios when we have to deal with the United States, international relations, developing the economy and finding alternatives to the United States. He's got quite a few people in there with that kind of a background that they can all collaborate, if you want to put it. So I'd give him a 7, 8 out of 10 in terms of his overall picks. So I wouldn't say it's a balance down the line. But there is a balance down the line in terms of the individuals that he has brought in from all walks of life, which is great to see. So I would give him a passing grade on that. It's very difficult to say a stellar passing grade because this is his first kick at the can at politics. And I think we'll have to wait and see how his picks are working for him, and very, very quickly. I'd give it 3 to 6 months before, the daggers from the opposition start coming out and offer their critique, which is what they're being paid to do. But by the same token, we're going to see whether or not his picks are actually going to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Right out of the gate, there were 2 faux pas that we saw right off the bat. We'll see how that pans out. Out of the entire pick, and I think I brought this up recently to you, while we were looking at the Liberal convention and campaign for leadership, right? We had said any one of these would be a great pick for a Liberal leader and Prime Minister of Canada, right? Now imagine one wins, let's say in this particular case, Carney, and he brings on the people that were competing with him for the Liberal leadership. We're talking about the Karina Gould, we're talking about the Chrysler Freeland, Frank Baylis. They were all there. Can you imagine bringing all these individuals into the fold and being part of his cabinet? And I think he's brought 2 of them in. My question for you, Gary, is I know that Karina Gould ran for election. She won I think it was Burlington, the Hamilton area, Burlington, Ontario. She won it quite handily. I was surprised he didn't give her at least a backbench position in terms of the 10 ministers that he picked as secretaries. She wasn't offered any sort of portfolio, and I'm kind of surprised by that. And by the same token, equally, I'm disappointed by that. And I don't know if I'm missing something in the story as to why she wasn't picked, Gary. Maybe you might be able to elaborate on that. But I would have loved to have seen her with at least a portfolio. You and I both said she's going to be the Prime Minister of Canada one day.
Yeah, I think, and I seems to me I heard some discussion about this, that a lot of her policy planks that she was bringing out, I think may have been drifting too far left for Carney's liking, or at least that's what some of the discussion centered on. And therefore, he probably felt best just to leave that alone for the time being. Or maybe he sees her potential and is keeping her on the bench at the moment, but she is probably one of a number, including some of the secretaries of state on the bench, but who will be called up if there are some changes that are needed at some point down the road, whether it's a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 6 months from now. He does have bench strength to fall back on, which sometimes, you have some governments and they really don't have the bench strength of the right type of people to handle it. Because, she did handle, she was government House Leader. She handled that and tangled with Poilievre on a regular basis and held her ground, no problem. So I'm not sure. The whole thing about some of her policies may be too far for Carney. That may be just some of the happy hour gossip in Ottawa. I'm not 100% sure, but I think of it as he's making sure that he has the bench strength to call up, unlike certain NHL teams, it seems. So, anyhow, I think that's where it's going, Eddie.
Yeah,
Now,
it makes sense, actually, come to think of it.
The other thing is, my thoughts on the whole cabinet, well, the first one was what I kind of blew steam off about a while ago at the beginning of the show. But I think he needed to bring in the Melanie Jolys, especially the Dominique LeBlancs and Anita Anand, that core group. I think especially they've been involved in carrying the ball after Trudeau announced his resignation. They've been involved in carrying the ball with the U.S. through some really tough times up till, today, or, Tuesday when the new cabinet was unveiled. And they're still going to be carrying, some of them are still going to be carrying the ball throughout. So you don't throw that experience out the door just because you want to have a full new face. And, you have to look at the new faces coming in because some of them need some time. It's the first time they've probably even set foot in the House of Commons, let alone on Parliament Hill. Right. So they have to have time to come into their own and develop. And you just can't put them into a cabinet post right away. And some of the people coming in who are new have business backgrounds and have had contact with municipal, provincial, and federal levels of government in their positions in the private sector. So that experience leads. So unlike Pierre Poilievre's take on it, I think it's a good balance, aside from one. And I think he did a good job, and I think he does have some bench strength. It's going to be interesting. The way he's running it is, he's basically, I think, saying to the ministers, you're the VPs, handle it. Do your job. We'll meet from time to time, and we'll look at, the performance indicators and see how you're doing and, where we can go. From there, I think, too, at least 3 or 4, maybe more than half of the 10 secretaries of state are also, he's using those positions to see what these people will do and groom and look for some potential full cabinet material from there as well. And one of them, Wayne Long, who's Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency and financial institutions. Wayne, 10 years as an MP in the St. John area, wasn't going to reoffer, especially with Trudeau still at the helm. He said, okay, I've had enough. And then Carney comes along, calls him, And he said, okay, if you win the leadership, I'm in. And he was in, and he won the riding again handily. But Wayne Long has been one of the best performing MPs for the St. John Rothsay at the time, now St. John Kennebecasis riding, that he's been one of the best performing in the last 5 to 6, maybe even 7 MPs that I remember and covered over my years in covering the St. John area, the New Brunswick area. And the amount of money that he has brought into that riding is just phenomenal. Even when he had his hands slapped for voting against a tax bill a few years ago that was going to impact small businesses, and he said, I'm voting against it. My constituents in the small business community are telling me it's going to hurt them, and it's going to have, it's going to be tough on them, period. And he voted again, and I think he got hauled into the Prime Minister's office and probably had a discussion, a meaningful exchange of dialogue, and then he was removed from his committee work, and he was left off committees for a while. This was his punishment. But he very quickly learned how to work the system, and he just kept working the system even while he was not in the good graces of the Prime Minister. And he never, I think, ever returned to the good graces of the Prime Minister. And, the first one to speak out back in June that Trudeau had to go. And just kept on speaking from there, right to the point, I think, at one point he referred to Trudeau as delusional. So and he has a business background, and he has worked for companies where he traveled around the world. So he has that background, and he'll take that particular assignment, and he's going to be one of the performers coming out of the Secretary of State. I'll put money on it for sure. So I think overall, Carney did a good job. I think he's giving them some latitude to do the job. Some of them need some media training ASAP, and some of them need to be retrained from a media perspective, especially for the Ottawa press gallery. So,
Look, you know what? I mean, Prime Minister Carney, overall, since he took the reins as Prime Minister of Canada de facto and after election, I'm pretty impressed with what he's been able to do with the pressures imposed on us by the United States, the threats imposed on us by the United States, and pressures within Canada to actually get us through the post-Trudeau era and evolve us both as a from an economy perspective, in terms of taking care of the important stuff, as you mentioned often, health, getting rid of the trade barriers, interprovincial trade barriers. I mean, this is all what he had preached during his election campaign. Thus far, in terms of how he's been representing at least myself as a citizen of Canada, I'm quite pleased. And you know what? Opposition is going to be opposition. Poilievre is going to be Poilievre. Already firing salvos at him, and he hasn't even started doing his job yet, as he's just appointed his cabinet. Let's see let him do his job. Let him run the country, and we'll deal with the rest as time goes on. So, as a voter, I'm quite pleased with how he's performed thus far, and time will tell.
Well, wait till you hear Poilievre's comment coming up in the next segment, where Carney says no budget. But, and that's round 2 from the Prime Minister, where he says we will not have a federal budget this year. First, let me say this. If you've been thinking about embarking on a YouTube journey, or you are a video hobbyist, you may find Ecamm Live to be the video app you are looking for. From live streaming to recording, and let me just bring that, oh no, it's not going to come up. Okay. From live streaming to recording, Ecamm is a Mac-based app with all of the tools you need for a professional-looking product. ECAM, by the way, powers Night Talk. You can check out the affiliate link below for more information and sign up for a free trial period. All right, let's get down to money now. No federal budget. During the first meeting of his new cabinet this week, Prime Minister Carney announced he is pushing ahead with his promised tax cut for middle-income Canadians, and his government would not be tabling a budget during the upcoming session of Parliament opening later this month. Finance Minister Francois Philippe Champagne says there will be a financial update later this year.
As you've seen this morning, we've been listening to Canadians, and we've been delivering for Canadians. The first order of business of the first cabinet of the new government under Prime Minister Carney was to offer to Canadian a middle-class tax cut, a very significant step that will benefit 22 million Canadians across the nation, that will provide a family with two income up to $840 of benefits. This is very significant, and it sends a very strong and clear message to Canadians that we care, that we understand that one of the first concerns they have is about affordability, and we want to send a message that, yeah, there's a lot of things going on, but we'll be there for them. So that was the first order of business of this government.
We were very disappointed yesterday to hear that he has no budget planned for this year. This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances. And so we're here with solutions. I'm proposing offering the Prime Minister to sit down with him and propose conservative solutions that we hope that he will steal. I want him to steal our best ideas. That includes cutting the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down deficits, inflation, and taxes. We want a real income tax cut that rewards hard work, axe the federal sales tax on new homes to promote more building and lower costs, and stand up against American tariffs with lower taxes on Canadian investment and by repealing all of the anti-energy policies like C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, and unleashing our resources so that we can become the richest country in the world. Now, these are ideas that Conservatives are putting forward, but I'm happy to bring them right to the Prime Minister's desk and invite him to steal them and put them right in his platform. And if he does, then we will help get those passed before Canada Day.
In Carney's platform, he plans to add another $225 billion to the debt over the next 4 years. I mean, folks, the banker is supposed to be better with the numbers than the drama teacher, but Carney is planning on adding almost $100 billion of more debt than even what Trudeau was planning to do. Okay, think about it this way. Interest payments on the debt alone are blowing a $1 billion hole in the budget every single week. Okay, welcome to Canada, folks, where every single dollar you pay in federal sales taxes goes to pay interest charges on the debt. So Canadians have every reason to be worried about the state of our national finances. And with this decision, the Carney government is essentially just shrugging it off. Oh, don't worry, folks. Well, here's the thing. Taxpayers deserve a budget. Taxpayers deserve to know the true state of our national finances, and taxpayers deserve the ability to hold the government spending plans accountable. But that's pretty hard when the government isn't even going to present a budget.
And our question for this segment is, should the Carney government table a budget in the upcoming session of Parliament? Well, Eddie, some swift reaction from Poilievre and, of course, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
I don't know what to say, Gary. I think I'll leave it to you to start with the commentary, and I'll kind of kick in. The only thing I can see right off the bat in terms of his first Poilievre's first 20 seconds is exactly what Monel said. He lost his bloody writing. I think he should just slither away. That first 20 seconds, that's what I felt like.
He's trying to appear more friendly, and the smile, it looks more like a smirk, and it doesn't look natural at all.
He looked like a Fox anchor. With that sneer. I don't like that.
Yeah.
It didn't do it. He looked like a Fox anchor.
Well, who knows? That could be in his future. They may come up and recruit him at some point once the Tories get fed up with him and give him the heave-ho. Anyway, the budget, there
What do you think?
There are two schools of thought, but at this stage of the game, I don't have an issue with not having a budget. Like, if you recall, the budget in the final Trudeau year, we were promised a fall economic statement, which didn't arrive until almost mid-December. And then that's when Chrystia Freeland pulled the plug and refused to table it and resigned. And started everything in motion. We're in month 2 now of the new fiscal year for the federal government. And Steve McKinnon was on Power Play yesterday, and he was saying, look, we have a number of things to do, and there's still a lot of uncertainty as far as how the trade war is going to end up. So, there will be an opportunity for Parliament to debate and examine. They'll be bringing, I think they're called supply bills through to, allocate money to keep government going throughout the balance of the fiscal year. And they are, as you heard Champagne say in the clip in the first segment, they are planning on a fall economic statement. So between getting an insight as to what's happening with the supply bills, and then getting the fall economic statement, which will still give us a much better idea. If it comes like maybe October, sometime in October, no later than the 1st of November, then that's still like, fiscal year ends March 31st. So you have a better idea of where we're headed. It also gives the government some flexibility in case all hell breaks loose with Trump and tariffs and the trade war again. Although he's
variable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's been backpedaling big time because they're really starting to hurt down there, and he's starting to get the blowback from his MAGA core. But that's now. But tomorrow morning, he could get up and just say, okay, we're back at it. All bets are off. These deals that you're proposing not good enough. You know what he's like. So right. you can't count on anything. The only thing you can count on is getting through the next 3 years and 8 months or whatever it is now. Trying to get through that and keep your head above water, and then hope that he's gone and doesn't make the attempt to run another term. Pull some kind of fast move, and also hope that J.D. Vance does not become president. So I get where they're coming from, and just the way everything unfolded with the way Trudeau waited until the new year and put us into a very vulnerable position. And I get it, and I'm willing on this issue to give them a bit of leeway this year and this year only. But,
Yeah.
come
I'm of the same
March,
mind.
they better have a budget to table, and they better be able to defend that budget, because Carney's platform, he's talking about spending a huge chunk of change.
He didn't hide that.
He
has
didn't
not
hide it.
hidden that from anyone.
And his sales pitch was, this is going to be key investments in infrastructure that we need and will need going forward. We're going to future-proof the country. And, I get it, because we have been absolutely not only just ignoring the military, but we've ignored a whole lot of other federal responsibilities as well to pour money into these grandiose schemes, and pushing a lot of money offshore to various countries for
God knows what.
Yeah, I mean, some of the programs that this money was aimed at, like, really, seriously, and we have people lining up at food banks and living in cardboard boxes and tents under, highway overpasses, and you're shipping money off. Like, I'm sorry, and I really don't care if I offend anyone on this, but charity begins at home. If we can't look after our own people and provide them with some kind of decent housing, provide them with the ability to get healthy, decent meals, how in the hell can we run around and stand on stage and sign off checks for this many millions of dollars and for whatever the little, like, really? We have people with mental health issues. Nobody, has tackled the mental health issue with any, real push. Like, the housing, it just goes on and on. And yet, again, and as Carney drove home, and now even Poilievre's picking up on it more and more, this country has the potential to be the richest country in the world with the resources that we have at our fingertips, and the way we could, strike deals for these resources. And we haven't done anything. We've done dick all with them, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. But you know what? Government critics aside, okay, let's just look at, whether it was Poilievre in charge or Singh or Prime Minister Carney today, okay? In order to fix wrongs in the past, and the Liberals have perpetuated a lot of wrongs, especially in the last 10 years, and prior to that, during the Harper government run, a lot of wrong had been done there. So, regardless of who is the Prime Minister today, in order to fix wrongs, whether you're in a government or whether you're running a corporation, fixing wrongs costs money, okay? We want to improve the healthcare. We need to address our homelessness here in Canada. We have to address our health issues, the health issues from our military personnel who have come home and are struggling. Enhancing our defense requirements of our own sovereignty, our own country. All of this is going to cost money. And you know as well as I do, as soon as Carney spends any money in any one of those elements I just mentioned, amongst the other dozens other sides that he has to fix, there is going to be critique. We're going to expect that no matter what. But whether the Conservative Party was in power, the NDP, the Green Party, even the Rhinoceros Party of Canada, I don't care who, in order to fix a problem, more often than not, you have to throw some initial money at it, okay? So I'm with you, Gary. I don't have a problem with him not tabling a budget immediately. There are just too many variables to deal with, okay? That's number one. Number two, there are a lot of issues that have to be fixed. Before tabling a budget, you have to have the opportunity to do your homework, for his ministers and his secretaries to do their homework, to correctly identify what budget requirements are necessary moving the country forward, not 6 months, but a budget that can typically provide immediate value with long-term benefits. You're not going to come up with that during a 1-month election campaign. You're not going to come up with that being in power for a mere 2 months. It's just not going to happen. You wouldn't do that as a CEO in a company. Why would you expect that in government? Give the administration time to completely and clearly understand what needs to get done. They have an idea of the target areas they need to focus on. All right, now it's the minister's jobs to find out exactly what needs to be done. Then you can table a budget. Yes, he's going to provide a statement. I have no doubt about that, preferably sooner than later, latest October, like you were saying. But give the man a chance to build his government the way it's supposed to be built, and not just run roughshod to satisfy the likes of Poilievre or anybody else. Right? Well, that's what I'm thinking.
The other side of it is that a Parliament resumes around the end of the month. And so, then they'll probably rise sometime mid-June, late June, I would think, and probably come back. He may bring it back like late September, sometime in October, probably sometime between late September and maybe the middle of October.
Maybe not. I mean, you and I were speculating. There's just too much to do. There's no
well, there is, but there will also be some things that in his platform, Carney wanted to get done right away, and one of the first things is, of course, the tax cut for middle-income Canadians, and so there will be a couple of things like that where they're going to have to go into Parliament. Now, the other side of it is, though, by then you get your fall economic statement, because you're already well into the budget year, right? April, May, June, July, August, that's 5 months. You come back in September, that's 6 months. Like, the year's half over, so what's the point of delivering a budget for half a year? Do the fall economic statement, show where it's going, and build on that fall economic statement and deliver your budget for the next fiscal year, early March, mid-March at the latest. Don't let it go almost to the end of March. And then you're back on track. Because, as I said earlier, like this year, in the beginning of this year and the ending of last year, well, most of the year because of the U.S. campaign as well, has been just nothing but a constant state of turmoil.
Yeah.
And Manel says, you're absolutely right, Gary. How could he possibly do anything when south of us is the most unstable, unpredictable, idiotic human being who is running the show down there? That's all part of it. So Carney gets in, and his cabinet ministers get on top of their files, and they get a feeling, at least for the next week, where the U.S. president is going, or what they can expect down the road. And then they can better figure, okay, how are we going to respond to this? And how does that response help Canadians deal financially on their own, and business and small business, large and small businesses? How do we ease the burden of what we're experiencing thanks to what's happening south of the border? So, you're right. It all has... A good CEO is going to come in and say, okay, let's get a handle on what's happening. Let's find, get into the books, the whole shooting match. And then once we understand exactly what we're dealing with as far as what's happening within the organization and how, we're watching what's happening outside the organization and how we're going to then set our goals and, the key performance indicators. So I think
based on real information, not just
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have a problem with it. I know that there will be some who will say, oh, you liberal supporter, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? I've been called a card-carrying member of every party that's ever come along, so it doesn't bother me calling you. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So, that's, at least I see an individual, and, there's all kinds of crap on social media about where he's really going to go and all of this stuff. And just stop. But just before we end this segment and get into hockey, I just want to say something about the tax cut.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not overly impressed. If you notice, the $800 and some that will be realized is for a double income family. So that means an individual who doesn't have a partner to fall back on, who may be working as well to help shore things up, will only get about $400. What's really right now, especially right now, what's $400? With the way, and Loblaws has been issued a warning this week that a lot of things coming in from the U.S. will be, could be up to triple in price. And of course, Loblaws have been known to be among the most expensive as far as the grocery chains are concerned.
Yeah.
But this time next month, we could walk into the grocery store to pick up a few odds and ends, and we're going to, if I walk in as a single person, I'm probably going to blow half or better of that $400 so-called assistance.
In one shopping weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you kind of say, okay, fine. The effort was there. It's not a lot of money. It's really not going to make a lot of difference. But from a political perspective, right? Is doing nothing better than doing just a little? That might not go a long way. I really don't know what the right or wrong of this is, Gary.
Yeah.
At this particular point in time, I get it. I mean, look, Loblaws are saying the prices are going up. Walmart actually came out regarding American business and Canadian business. Consumers, you are going to get a price increase because of these tariffs. So even the low cost super chains are coming out and saying it's going to cost more. So obviously they're not willing to absorb the increase in tariff costs and whatnot. And it's going to be passed down to the consumer, which is us. I mean, at this particular point in time, Gary, you know what? You're right. In one or two shopping weekends, whatever you're getting as a tax break, which you get at the end of the year, not today or tomorrow when I need the money, it's gone. So I will take the position of it's better than nothing at this point in time. Whether the Liberal government is going to get any brownie points on this, I don't know. You can expect Pierre Poilievre to criticize that it's not much money when people are doing blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's what we're going to expect. So I'll just err on the side of better a little bit than nothing at all.
Yeah. Well, exactly. But maybe, just maybe, Wayne Long can be the charging force. Let's overhaul the tax system. Why not just go with a flat tax rate? Get it over with. Everybody pays the same rate. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to spend, whatever it costs for software or taking your income tax into somebody to do it. Where do they get the people to dream up these tax forms and all of the little ins and outs in it? You either have an expense or you don't. but what's all of this other stuff that goes in between? And like,
Yeah, I get it.
It makes no freaking sense. It's just, anyway. All right, I'll stop now because actually I was lucky enough to get a tax refund. So
There we
maybe I
go.
should shut up. I don't want to get audited.
They're listening.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, up next, the segment a lot of you have been waiting for. Eddie is standing by to bring us up to date on the NHL playoffs. But before he does, a quick reminder. If you are enjoying our live streams and would like to show your support, you can buy us a coffee. Simply scan the code down below or look for the link. Eddie and I thank you for the coffee and your support of our efforts. Well, this is it. It's time. Eddie has the latest on the NHL playoffs, minus, of course, his beloved Habs, and probably minus, of course, next week, the Leafs as well. Take it away, Eddie.
Well, we'll see. Well, tell you what, Gary, let me ask you, should we do the best first or keep them for the end?
Keep it for the end.
I will. That's exactly what I was going to do, regardless of what you said. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, so here we are, where we got the final 8 going. Way back when in episode 4, we talked about who are the final 4 teams that are going to be entering the divisional finals. I said the Edmonton Oilers. I said the Edmonton Oilers. I said the Dallas Stars. I also kind of had my backing behind the Toronto Maple Leafs. So all in all, right now, we're still looking at the possibility of a Final Four comprising of 3 Canadian teams. That in itself is a remarkable accomplishment, Gary. I'm very pleased that we still are in the running for 3 out of 4 teams. So let me start from the beginning. I had predicted the Edmonton Oilers were going to make it into the Final Four. They were my first ones on the table. And lo and behold, the Edmonton Oilers, who were playing the Las Vegas Knights in the second round, they jumped to a 2-0 lead. They lost a heartbreaker in Game 2 with 1 second left to go in the game. And the beloved Edmonton Oilers from out west, they won the series 4-1. So they're going to be advancing to the Western Conference Finals as part of the Final Four. Last week, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the Winnipeg Jets' miraculous comeback and winning in double overtime. Well, the Winnipeg Jets are playing one of my picks for the Final Four, being the Dallas Stars. The Jets lost the first game, and they came back and tied the second game. They won the second game, tied the series, and they won with a resounding 4-0 win. Well, guess what happened? They lost the next 2, and the Stars took a 3-1 game lead. And the Winnipeg Jets faced elimination, so they had to win their last 2. And, Game 5 was won last night, and they won 4-0. So they got to win 2 more, and it's going to come down to their goaltending. Connor Hellebuyck, who was MVP nominee for best goaltender in the league, he's been struggling on the road. He's not winning very many, but he's pretty much won most of his games playing in Winnipeg. So Game 6 is going to be held in Dallas, and hopefully there will be a Game 7 back in Winnipeg. Over with American teams, the Washington Capitals that beat my beloved Montreal Canadiens. After beating the beloved Montreal Canadiens, I would have hoped there would have been a better showing against the Carolina Hurricanes. Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals succumbed to the Carolina Hurricanes 4-1. So Carolina advances to the Final Four, which was not one of my initial picks. And the interesting thing about Carolina, there are no superstars, there are no superstars, but an entire team of just hardworking hockey players. They beat the high-powered, high-octane Washington Capitals. Congratulations to them. And well, Gary, Toronto Maple Leafs, after convincing win over the Ottawa Senators, played the Florida Panthers. Best for last, Gary. So the Montreal Maple Leafs, to your chagrin, took a 2-0 lead over the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers.
The Montreal Maple Leafs.
I told you this was all going to be based on the core 4, which take up 60 to 70% of the entire Maple Leaf payroll on the ice. that they cannot wither and disappear when the big boys come out to play. Guess what happened? The core four have disappeared in the last 3 games. All right? So the series is now 3-2 Florida. The Maple Leafs play tonight. Just to give you an idea of what these 3 straight losses meant here. In the last 5 games, the core four scored 5 goals in the first 2 games, which gave them that 2-0 lead. In the last 3 games, they've scored just 2 goals. 2 goals, Gary. So somehow the Dallas Stars have either A, figured the core four out, B, the big boys are pushing the core four around. And as a matter of fact, there was an Amber Alert issued this morning, Gary. It was for Austin Matthews. Nobody can find where Austin Matthews is. He's nowhere to be found on the ice on the score sheet, and they have absolutely no idea where he is, and they're hoping he's going to show up for the game tonight.
I guess it was
Yes, Gary, your beloved Maple Leafs are down 3-2. I'm still hoping they make it to the Final Four. Should be a very interesting game tonight. They have to do it in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, and they come home for Game 7. So hopefully the Winnipeg Jets will pull it off and force a Game 7, and hopefully the Maple Leafs and the core four, and they find Austin Matthews somewhere hiding under a rock somewhere. Hopefully they'll find him and be able to actually produce as the Leafs captain on the ice. And I'll tell you what, you look at the disparity between captains. I mean, you look at Austin Matthews of the Maple Leafs, and you look at Edmonton Oilers captain, and he is just a difference. I mean, there was a play where Dallas was coming down for a breakaway, and Connor McDavid skated the entire length of the ice right back and broke up the play, so there was no play there. On the other hand, you're looking at Matthews and his core four. 2 of the core four were directly responsible for the losses in Game 4 and 5, where they were just skating around, lollygagging, and not paying attention to what was going on. But really, it's sad. At this time of the year, there's no lollygagging. You have to play hockey. Hockey is not like football where you play for 5 seconds and maybe catch a ball every 10 minutes if you're lucky, or touch the ball. It's constant. You're on the ice full throttle for 30 to 45 seconds. You cannot give up because you end up paying for it. And unfortunately, the core four are directly responsible for the game-winning goals against Dallas. So at the end of the day, I'm still very hopeful that we'll have 3 Canadian teams out of 4 playing in the Final Four. So if my wish comes through, it's going to be Carolina against Toronto for the Eastern Conference, and it's going to be Edmonton and Winnipeg in the Western Conference. Although I think that's going to be a little bit of a long shot. Either the Leafs are not going to make it, or Winnipeg is not going to make it. So it's been great so far. It's been excellent. I enjoy talking to you about the Maple Leafs, Gary. And you know what? Hopefully next week I'll have either some good news, or I'm going to grill you on social media for a Leafs loss. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
Well, I'll tell you, apparently at Scotiabank Center for the last game, people were leaving early, and a lot of fans were throwing their jerseys on the ice as they were leaving, like total disgust.
If I'm paying $1,000 a seat or $1,000 for a couple of seats, you know what? I'd be there after the final whistle to get my money's worth.
Exactly.
Literally leaving. It was like 15 minutes left to go in the game. And then you saw the jerseys coming down, $250 a pop.
Yeah, exactly. That's a total. I mean, that's a new level of frustration.
Yeah, it is.
I would suggest to you that most, if not all, of the Leafs have their golf clubs and their summer clothes on the plane with them. And after tonight, it's done.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I am not holding out any hope.
They have not been there the last 3 games. I think they lost 2 of the games by shutouts, if I'm not mistaken. They just haven't. The guys who expect to be there were not there. The muckers, the grinders are playing their hearts out, and I just feel bad for those guys.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the other 30 to 40% of payroll these guys are showing up to play hockey, and then some guys are just not showing up. So
Yeah,
it's too bad.
exactly.
I hope they turn it around, starting with Captain Matthews. And you know what? If they win Game 6, you never know what happens in Game 7. So as soon as you and I are done here, I'm going to turn on the television and have a look, see what's going on.
All right. Well, with that, that's a wrap on tonight's big stories, from the federal cabinet to the national pastime. Thanks for joining us live. Keep the conversation going in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Also, don't forget to like and share as well. Night Talk returns in 7 days. I'm Gary MacDonald. Good night.
Have a
Good
nice
night,
long
Eddie.
weekend, guys. Bye-bye.